Okay, so I don't like to give advice unless people ask, but since you're asking, my two pieces of advice would be this. One, listen to your gut always, right? It's never wrong. Two, monitor and protect your inner circle fiercely. Your inner circle today will predict where you'll be in 5 years. Take care of the people that take care of you in that circle and be as generous with them as they are with you.
You are now listening to Talk Shop with Allon Avgi.
Welcome to the Talk Shop podcast. You're one of the first of few to be on this podcast so far. I've been begging you to make some time to hop on already. Finally, we're in the presence of Tona.
It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Tom, I wrote a list of questions. The first question, for those people that don't know that are listening, I want you to explain what you do.
Sure. So I founded and manage a law firm, Tona Law. We are a litigation law firm. And we have three main silos of business: personal injury, where we represent injured parties; no-fault collections, where we represent approximately 350 institutional healthcare providers; and then we do breach contract litigation for individuals and businesses, for people that are party to a contract that is in various stages of breach.
That's when we became friends. Remember when I had that one breach of contract lawsuit?
Yeah. I talked you out of suing somebody that you were ready to sue.
Yeah. It wasn't worth it. Didn't make enough sense. Would take too long. All these factors, and you talked me out of it. And that's why we became good friends in the beginning too, because you didn't just try and get my business. You just wanted what was best for me.
Yeah. Listen, I also, I remember meeting you and spending about 2 hours of time just sitting there talking through everything. And I remember walking out saying, man, I'm going to end up doing a lot of business with him, even though I'm talking him out of doing business right now.
Yeah. And we've done plenty. A few things so far, not plenty, but I've introduced you. You've introduced me to a lot of people. We've been trying to do deals, and every real estate deal we try and do, somebody seems to be an absolute moron in the deal, right?
Yeah, there's always, listen, I think nowadays having somebody who knows litigation on your team of people is a valuable asset to have. That doesn't mean you're going to go around suing everybody. It means if you're with a litigation firm, the end game or the end threat of we'll see you in court doesn't faze you anymore.
Yep. You're so right. Because that feeling for me has totally evaporated since we've become good friends.
Because that's where we live. We live in court, so.
Yep. And every time we talk, you're like, I will destroy them, Allon. How many people are on the team right now, Tom?
So we are 10 in-house. I have a team of people overseas. We just expanded to another country in terms of developing a team for outsourcing purposes. So in-house, we have 3 attorneys. We have 7 power professionals. One of the things that I think has been key for us is our team and our culture. I give them credit for everything at this point. I've spent about the last 7 years really developing that culture. So I have a team of high performers that are in a high-tech environment, and their output is equal. We can output legal production, legal work at 2.5 to 3 times what other firms do. So we're actually putting out work that's the equivalent of a firm of 25 to 30.
Wow. Sick.
All through technology and A players. All of the people on my team are paid. You know my philosophy. I pay people at the top end of the scale plus. I give them a ton of freedom, and they all take on tremendous responsibility for the results of the firm.
Yep, and they all seem to bring in business. Every time we talk, you tell me somebody else brought in business. I know you're the main one pumping the machine, right? You're bringing in most of the business, but it seems like you built like a solid team that's always looking to help Tona Law and build together.
Yeah, always. One of the things that we've really been happy about is the fact that people tie their own success to the success of the firm. So basically we do these vision meetings and we're like, look, what do you want? Is it recognition? Is it money? What do you want for the future? Put it on paper and let's see how you achieve that through what you do with the firm.
I love that. Those vision meetings. And where did you come up with that? Was that from the business coach? Didn't mention that, but you have like a business coach, right, that you looped in, and you told me that's a vital part of the business.
Yeah.
Two business coaches, one private and then one that specifically works with lawyers.
So no, they both work only with lawyers, like almost exclusively with lawyers. One is a group dynamic, right? And the name of the organization is Atticus Online or Atticus Advantage. They're a law firm marketing group, and they run group coaching. So I would fly to Dallas 4 times a year, and we're meeting with all similar bracketed owners of law firms, same revenue numbers roughly, same size and scale. And we're taking part in a collaborative coaching effort where we coach each other. We bounce ideas like a mastermind. I wanted more tailored one-on-one, so I hired one of their coaches to give me an hour and a half a week every week. So then I get tailored advice on top of the high level stuff that we do at the quarterly meetings.
How much does something like that cost?
I don't look at it as an expense. I look at it as an investment.
Yeah.
So in all candor, it's probably around a $30,000 investment for both pieces.
Per year.
Per year. I want to say about 30. I could be off by a few thousand. But the ROI has been tremendous. I mean, when I tell you that, me, I think only in terms of ROI when I spend money. So if I tell you that the minimum ROI on that is 3 to 10x, hands down, down.
Wow. Sick. And I've never had a business coach, so I'm only from hearing what it's done for you is why I've considered getting one. I just don't think I found the right one for me yet.
I think you got to be careful. There's a lot of mediocre talent in the space to begin with. So I think you got to ask around at the people that are in your inner circle that either do it, where they're engaging in coaching. That's the best way, I think, to find somebody who's really solid. But yeah, listen, I recommend it. You also have a very strong circle of mentors, though. So you kind of get a lot of that. The only thing that you might not get is the granular. Like, hey, Allon, this is why time management is important. Yeah. This is why marketing is important, and always be marketing. Now, you're a born marketer, so that's not going to be a missing piece for you, right? Time management was huge for me. It also helped me find a good quality of life. Taking a month off to go to Europe with my family, and my machine is still humming here. Yeah. And my clients don't feel anything but the same thing they would get no matter where I am.
And that's why you're such a good lawyer, because you constantly have that incredible service and everything going on all the time.
It's all about the clients, man. It's all about the clients.
You know, and I guess we're saying like coaching, really they're like consultants, right? But
Oh yeah, that's what they are. Yeah.
yep. And then like with me, people always say like, how do you find the right mentor? It's not like I picked my mentors. They happen to be my partners. It just so happens that they've done very, very well over the years. So they show me what they've done. And people like me and you, we're friends, but you also give me guidance on things that I have not yet experienced. When there's a market pullback, what should you look at? Because this happened back in '08, although obviously coronavirus was totally different. But you know what I mean. So it's just different names, but the same hats.
Yeah.
What makes a good lawyer? I always hear people saying like, my lawyer is horrible, my lawyer is horrible. I feel it all the time with some of my real estate attorneys. They don't answer, they don't this, they don't that, they drive me insane. And you've always been on point every time I've had to call you or talk or anything outside of just being friends. So, I bet there's a lot of people that are listening that are wondering themselves, or that will be listening, what makes a good attorney?
So to me, one of the things, so first of all, I hire attorneys outside to work on my business, right? So I have an ethics attorney in the city. She costs me $1,000 an hour. Why? I want to make sure I'm on point with all of my marketing, with all of my employment practices. So I have a compliance attorney in the city. She's one of the top compliance attorneys for law firms. And I get white glove treatment every time. So I want my staff and my attorneys and myself to treat my clients the way I would be treated if I was writing a check.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good attorney. As much communication as you want, right? Some people don't need a lot of communication. Some people want immediate communication, right? Some people are like, just send me a text, I'm good. But if somebody's spending on a private breach contract litigation $35,000, right, in legal fees, don't you think they want to be kept up to date and hear from their lawyer once a month what's going on? I know I would, right? So what makes a good lawyer also is having the bandwidth, not taking every case, and having the bandwidth to lawyer the cases you're taking the best you can, right? Don't take everything you can because you're worried about where your next check is coming from. If you're going to take it, do it to the nth degree of excellence, right? Make it so that that client has no choice but to say, wow, a 5-star review is not enough for what you guys did for me.
Wow. Well said. I had a follow-up question that was going to say, what type of mistakes do lawyers typically make? But it seems like you basically just touched on that when you said they take too much business and don't lawyer it accordingly.
Or lack of communication, like you were just saying, right? Which is crazy to me because you can reach my office through text message, Zoom, Skype, email, telephone, social media. We just added a Calendly link. So anybody that's on the internet that wants to schedule a calendar intake consultation with my intake person in personal injury, clicks the link, gets her calendar, and they're in her calendar automatically.
And you're constantly automating all the time.
What's that?
Constantly automating things all the time.
All the time. So to me, you know me. How many phone calls do I do in the car, from the car, text messages? You always know what's going on, right? With anything I'm working on for you. So it's baffling to me that people are still getting grievances against them because their attorneys are not communicating. It's the number one source of grievances against attorneys. Failure to communicate.
Dude, I go through it all the time. My real estate attorneys, I have like 8 of them right now. And it's because, you give one too much business, he stops responding, all your eggs are in that basket, and all of a sudden you're in trouble because your attorney isn't responsive. So
it's crazy to me. Like, I know the amount of volume you're doing in real estate. If I'm a real estate attorney, you're going to be on speed dial with me. Anything you want to know, you will get a text message, a call. Why would they? Listen, get an assistant then. If you're creating that much business for a real estate attorney, hire a junior assistant, and her job is to communicate with Allon. right? And think about the math. Let's say for a second, you spend $100,000 in legal fees or $200,000 in legal fees in a year. Hire an assistant for 30, 40 grand. And her sole job is to communicate with you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to lose that business to somebody else like me, who will get a real estate attorney in here, communicate with you the way I always have, and I'll just take the business away.
Yeah, exactly. If you had a real estate attorney in-house, then we would be doing that, but whatever.
I think about it all the time. I think about it all the time because I know I can make you happy.
Yeah.
Right? I know I can do it.
You know what? I just got this new real estate attorney. His name's Ross, and he brought on an assistant, just like what you said. This really aggressive kid from Hofstra University. I met him the other day for the first time in person, and he calls me at 11 p.m. to get deals done. You know, he's been so responsive morning to night, anytime. I've got his cell number. I love it. You know, I'm very happy with him, and I hope it continues because the trend seems to be I give them 2, 3, 4 deals. All of a sudden, they drop off, right? You know, remember we got in that, you recommended that one attorney, and I'm like, Tom, he won't give me his cell phone number. I don't want to work with him. You know, the guy.
And listen, I kind of get it from your standpoint. You're like, look, I have $100 million investors that pick up my call on one ring. What attorney is doing $100 million a year that he's too important? He has to have a barrier. I get it. Like some firms, it's a procedural thing because they're in court. They're worried about the calls falling through the cracks. Oh, I spoke to Allon from court, and now I don't know I have something scheduled because it's not centralized. And that's kind of the philosophy that some firms employ. For me, I have Slack. So no matter where I am, if I set an appointment with you, I Slack Janira. I'm like, put it in the calendar, or I put it in myself on my phone. It's just different. I love tech and what it allows me to do as far as leveraging time and people.
Yeah, by the way, we should have bought Chewy stock. I think I called it. Nobody trusted me. I'm very upset about not buying Chewy stock.
What happened to it?
It's just been booming. It's up like 40% since I talked about it like a month ago. Whatever.
So the other thing that I was thinking about when you asked like what mistakes lawyers typically make is working in their business versus on their business, right? So if you come to me like, I want you to do my real estate, I'm not going to do the closings. You're not ever going to see me at a closing. I will tell you that at the gate. That doesn't mean they won't be done excellent because you know the people I hire and you know the hiring systems I have.
Yeah.
But I'm always working on the business. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, Allon's going to generate 150 grand a year. I need an attorney who's going to handle the closings, and he might need a dedicated assistant just for the communications end of it, right? That's working on the business. And I think too many attorneys are caught up, especially with Corona. Everybody's panicking in, oh my God, I got to scramble. I got to get the legal fees in. I got to do the work. So they don't have time to pick up calls. They don't have time to do what is good customer service and marketing. And I forget the exact math, but it costs, I think, 5 times as much to acquire a new client as to keep an existing client. So why wouldn't you take better care of your existing clients?
Of course.
Right? That's the philosophy I try to embody.
I know it's different for every industry, but I think in like e-commerce, I heard once it's like 10x to get a new client rather than, you know, retain an existing one. So you're on the money, as usual.
Thank you.
What made you become a lawyer? Well, wait. Before we get into that, funny story. Every time I speak to another attorney about Tona, Tom already knows this. They go, Tom, the guy that used to import furniture. And I'm like, what do you mean import furniture? So were you, I don't know if I even ever asked you this, but before you became an attorney, what was the other career? What did you do? And then what transitioned?
No, so I was already in private practice for myself. I already had a very strong personal injury practice at the time, and we weren't siloed like we are now with multiple different veins of business. I was approached to do an importing business, marrying up India and China for soft goods and case goods, and to import. The problem was we were importing at a time that the internet was making the world a much smaller place. So we had $1 million order that had come in from Levitz. I don't know if you remember Levitz at the time.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't fill the order because they filed bankruptcy within 3 months.
Yeah.
And what ended up ultimately happening was we shelved that entire project because the internet really cut out importers. You don't need an importer. You can go on any website and get a manufacturer without the need of an importer.
Okay.
So I ended up shelving it. It wasn't a great outcome for me. In all honesty, I lost a pretty significant amount of money. But what was amazing is what I took away from it. It was the best learning lesson.
How much did you lose?
A lot. Multiple seven figures.
Multiple seven figures?
Multiple seven figures. And at the time, I felt like the world was coming to an end. And I will tell you that the value of the education that I learned and things I got and all of the lessons I took away, I would go through it again just for that reason. Wow. It was well worth it. And I'm financially, I'm fine. I made it all back plus.
Yeah. And it was a huge learning lesson, right?
You can't learn from the good stuff. Everybody's a winner when things are good. Yeah. It's when the things come crashing down that you really learn about who you are, what kind of business you're really running, and how really good are you at what you're doing. That's when you really see what you're made of.
Wow. Very interesting. And while you were saying that, in my head, I was like, I wonder when that crash will happen to me. And I'm like, don't think like that.
Well, listen, there are black swans that come, but you're also a black swan minded guy where you prepare for the worst. You already know most of the variable outcomes that can occur. And when you prepare for the worst, if the worst never happens, you're fine. And if the worst does happen, you've already planned for it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the people that don't have a black swan plan. Like I got hit with a black swan in 2016. Right. There was a governmental change. My no-fault collection hearings got cut in half for about 6 months. Wow. Pretty significant revenue impact on a monthly basis. I hired my first one-on-one coach and we figured our way through it. We came up with black swan planning and then we catapulted after that. But because I went through that, I was kind of ready when COVID hit. Even though COVID was like the mother of all black swans, I already had all the systems and operations in place to kind of flip whatever levers I needed to flip to minimize non-essential expenses, maximize revenue, delineate essential versus non-essential staff. And I had all of the triggers pulled within 4 days after the shutdown occurred. Yeah. Actually, prior to the shutdown occurring, I pulled most of the triggers.
Wow. And not only that, you're like a sponge too. Wherever you could get information, you get it, right? I remember when the crash happened, you called me, you're like, what are you doing while this is going on? What's changing? Everything. And that's what I love about you too. You don't care how old anybody is, what anybody's experienced, anything. You want to hear it from every angle. And I think the main thing we talked about was cash. I want as much cash as possible right now on hand, right? So I backed out of a $4 million deal. At the time, it was my biggest deal, and I did keep going with one deal. So I backed out of a $4 million deal, and I pursued a $14 million deal at the time because I thought that $4 million deal would leave me too cash strapped, and then I'd put myself in a really bad position. And you, on the other hand, I remember you talked about tapping lines of credit, investing in the stock market while things are tanking, all sorts of things. And I bet I wasn't the only one you called. I bet you called everybody in your phone book, right?
I called everybody in my inner circle, right? Like, so you mentioned before about not caring about age. I mean, you definitely by far are the youngest guy in my inner circle. That being said, cool. You're, and I say this in all honesty, you're a brilliant business mind. You're a great friend. Like I really have a good connection with you as a friend. And I think that I can learn from anybody that puts in the work, that is great at what they do. You have a brilliant mind for finance. And yeah, you were one of my first calls. Like, what are you doing in the business? And then I did call my buddy in North Carolina who runs one of the largest PI firms down there. I was on the phone with my buddy who owns one of the largest PI firms in West Palm Beach. I was on the phone with my coach almost daily because New York got hit way harder than any other state, especially in the legal market.
Yeah. Yeah, we did get hit hard. Everybody keeps talking about us living in a bubble. You know, I don't know about the legal market. What do you mean by that?
So New York, the courts are still essentially crippled, right? I was reading a statistic that New York City, I want to say New York City last year, they said something like 1,000 trials. This year from March till, I want to say I read it in November, they had 9 trials. So if you're a litigation law firm that all of a sudden your personal injury, let's say your personal injury inventory was a 2-year window from filing of the lawsuit to resolution, 18 months to 2 years. And we were pretty quick at that turnover, right? Where you were getting to pick a jury and either they were paying you or you going forward with a trial.
Okay.
That's been extended out. That's double.
Wow.
Double. So the firms that were walking around like we try every case, guess what? For the next 4 years, they better figure out a different plan, right? So yeah, I leaned on the people that I trust, like you, my buddy Herb, the other people that are in my circle, that we were all in the same boat. We were all just trying to figure it out.
What, you said 9 trials?
There were 9 trials from March through, I want to say October, and I could have that off by a month.
What's it?
Whereas the prior year it was 1,000 trials.
Wow.
9.
Wow.
Now that's going on in every county, Suffolk, Nassau. So
Under 1% of the trials year over year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So think about what that's doing to law firms.
It's
Not to
crippled law
mention,
firms.
You know, society as a whole in New York is suffering from like a cultural depression almost. Like people are just depressed, angry, sad, anxiety ridden. The last thing they're worrying about is, do they have a personal injury case or go to retreat for it, right? So, you know, you got to really look at the big picture. What's the global picture? And really for me, what we figured out is we just have to help people. We got to talk to people and see what they want and then try to get them the results they want in this new reality.
Yeah.
Right? But I will tell you, like, I'm fortunate. I'm very blessed. There are law firms that are 8 times the size of us that furloughed everybody for the entire time of the shutdown because they weren't in the cloud. They weren't virtual.
Holy shit.
They furloughed 80 people.
Because they were dated.
Because they were what?
Dated. Their systems were dated.
And they just weren't, you know, we implemented cloud technology, I want to say, God, probably like 2004, 2005.
And you implemented your own CRM.
We were one of the first people to have cloud technology in my knowledge of the space.
And you built your own CRM, right?
Well, I know. So like that portal you're talking about, it's a case management software.
Okay.
Specific to no-fault collections. We built it from the ground up. I built it over 2 years because there were no off-the-rack solutions. So we're the only ones that have it. It gives me a competitive edge. And it also allowed me to work seamlessly the day after the shutdown was implemented because it's all in the cloud again. So people are doing file uploads digitally, all the medical practices, everybody. So yeah, it really allowed us to pivot very quickly.
That would be a great startup.
Listen, I offered some very bright people ownership in that portal to say, hey, listen, if you want in, man, I don't know. I'm not a tech guy that I know how to, you know, build a company around it.
Yeah.
But I offer people equity in it.
You know what? I got a call the other day from another friend who's a doctor, and he wants to start a different business with all these systems, and it's different, and he has an angle and everything, and I said I'd find him I try and find him somebody that would be a good fit. And all the time I hear about these young, ambitious guys like looking for work or want to start something or want the right team and everything. And I don't know why, I just can't seem to find the right people to step in and take over and do something like when it's already like, let's say 20% there, right? And just head the ship on. I'm just not seeing that many crazy ambitious people. I feel like it's more talk.
Yeah, well, so I was going to say that you and I have introduced the portal to people, right? And it's more than 20% of the way there. I literally have turnkey clients that we can open it up to.
Yeah.
And I think, but getting a software company to the $5 million mark where private equity will look at it, right? From a purchase or acquisition standpoint, that's not easy to do.
Or even a Series A standpoint, like a funding standpoint.
But people, they're hungry, but they're not hungry like I'm hungry. They're not hungry like you're hungry. I know how late you work into the night on your acquisition analysis and how much work you put into protecting your investors. But people are going to look at you on Instagram or wherever you are and then say, oh, he makes it look so easy. Of course you make it look easy if you're putting in 18, 20-hour days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like you said, because of so many years of putting in 18 to 20-hour days, 7 days a week, I've had to take off Saturday and I've had to start traveling in order to like stay sane and not burn out, because you feel it. You just feel it in you. Like it starts to cripple you.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's people think they're hungry till they meet hungry. You want to meet hungry? Sit down and look at the work that you put in or the work that I put in on my law firm. I'm not working legal files. I'm talking about the business of my law firm. You know what I mean?
And not only that, the willingness to lose it, because they never really feel anything until you actually lose something. Like
risk.
Yeah, and of course it's relative to every person, but let's say I've had $50,000 in my bank account. I put up the 50, I put myself in debt on 250, and then I pulled a credit card bill for 80. So I'm not going to lose just the 50. I put up 330 on top of my 50 to lose, and with high interest debt, super risky. And now that it's come back, awesome. Now I'm comfortable. Now I realize what I've done and what mistakes I made. Do it again. Learn more. But it's that jump. It's that risk factor that people say they're hungry, but they don't actually take the risk. They don't actually prove it. Like what risks are you taking throughout this pandemic?
So I really looked at what I've been doing, and I will tell you that where in the pandemic, I've noticed that there's a huge contraction among law firms and practitioners. I'm scaling. I was scaling prior to COVID, and we're back in scale and growth. Different personalities adapt to risk or perceived risk differently, right? I am a very risk tolerant person. You are a very risk tolerant person. I sleep fine at night when it comes to risk. That doesn't mean that I don't pace the floors if there's stress or take stupid risk. But for me, I'm investing right now in my firm. I'm investing in my culture. I am investing. So risks I'm taking specifically. I'm still scaling up my marketing at a time when people are cutting their budgets.
Yeah.
Right. I'm hiring people at a time when people are firing people. Not only am I hiring people, I'm hiring a talent, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
So, expanding my marketing base. We just made the decision that we're going to put our top people on our top opportunities, not the biggest problems. And so now we're focused on scale, right? Growing the way we were planning on it. It may be slower, but I'm seeking out. What's that?
Top people and top opportunities. Could you repeat that?
Sure. I have a team of A players, highly paid A players. I'm not going to put them on problems. I'm going to focus on the opportunities.
Got it.
That will lead to the fast accelerated growth.
Got it.
Right. I'm not going to take a talent like Chris, who's a savage, Chris,
yeah.
Who's an attorney, and I'm not going to tie him up on a issue that we're having that's really a logistics or operational issue that it's not a priority over what the opportunities are.
Yeah.
Right. So
I understand.
so the risks are, you know, we want to be in growth mode. We're looking to acquire practices for owners that might be retiring. And I'm not confining it to downstate. Like I would love to find somebody in Buffalo, Albany, as long as they got a personal injury practice or a similar line of business to what we're doing. I'll entertain that acquisition. You know, you can't grow without risk. I mean, look what you're doing. You're doing 4 closings in a week. Who's doing that right now?
You won't believe it, Tom. I backed out of a closing, first one in my life, like with a hard deposit down. I lost the deposit and everything last week. First time I lost
Yeah,
that.
I know you were going to tell me what happened, but still, you did 3 closings that week.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Listen, that takes courage, right? So you can't grow without risk and you can't grow without courage. I'm just not built that way where I'm going to retract into fear. What if the corona wave 2? What if the vaccine doesn't work? It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to have the ability to pivot. And my firm is very nimble in that way. So my perceived risks are a little bit less in that regard once I know that it's a smart, calculated risk to take.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question you asked?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. You're looking into acquisitions now, which is a big change, and it's a faster way to grow, of course, right? Mergers and acquisitions are the best way to grow. And you're doing that during the pandemic when you didn't do that pre-pandemic. So that definitely answers my question.
Right. Well, I'm just at a different stage too. We were thinking about it pre-pandemic, but we were already set to grow another 20, 30% this year, right? And we had a booming year last year. So when COVID hit, first I had to do crisis management, and I did that, and we came through it, and I feel like we're in a great place. And I just realized there's a ton of opportunity, and the risks I'm willing to take are, I want to look at the opportunities and seize on the opportunities. And there's a lot of people who are just curled up in a fetal position, figuratively, unwilling to make a decision or move forward on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Analysis paralysis. I made a video about it.
Yep.
You told me that when coronavirus started, a lot of your business transitioned from PI, I guess at that time, to corporate law.
So I pivoted the marketing focus, number one, and because we've always been known as personal injury firm, but we've always done the other type of litigation, which is breach of contract stuff. So immediately I kind of forecasted that personal injury was going to slow down a little bit, and it did pretty significantly at the start. But I also knew there was going to be a ton of breach contract because nobody was going to be paying anybody. So I just pivoted my marketing, and we pulled in a lot of breach contract stuff. And we had always done the work. If I had somebody like you call me up and say, listen, this guy, screwed me over on a contract, I would say, listen, this is what we're going to do. I have a unique retainer set up. We'll help you out, right?
Yeah.
Now I was just making the general public aware that we were doing it. So I just pivoted. Like, we were a very fluid, fast pivoting organization as a whole. My whole team is highly adaptable. So if I come in and say, guys, we need to pivot tomorrow, they pivot. And my marketing pivots. So it's worked out really well.
You love marketing. You love marketing. Talk to me about social media. What do you do differently as an attorney? What type of marketing do you do? Yeah?
What's that?
What type of marketing do you do on social as well?
Okay, so one, I don't talk about law, right? No one cares about lawyers or law firms or their big verdicts. I might celebrate a big win, but the majority of my social media stuff is about communication and audience connection, right? So I like inspirational stuff because I like to be inspired. So I'll post that on Facebook. On LinkedIn, I'm building my connections right now. It's a B2B format. I have a B2B business. So there, I'm focusing on the demographic I'm looking for with LinkedIn. Instagram is top of mind awareness, right? So all through COVID, I would put up a post a day, mostly inspirational stuff. Hey, we're open. I signed up a mass tort case off of that. What should be a very high return mass tort case. Just because I was posting every day when I was back in the office, I got a call from somebody who knew me, said, hey, I remembered I saw you on Instagram posting, and I had put it on my to-do list to call you. Well, I'm making the call. It's a real case, took the case, going forward.
Nice.
Nice. And you have a staff basically around creating content that fits your needs and everything all the time to post on social.
Right?
Yeah, so I have an outside marketing company that I use, but I'm the one that comes up with the direction I want to take it in, because
Of course.
I want it to jive with who we are. Like, you know me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a blue collar guy. I'm a blue collar attorney. I'm not fancy. I don't drive a fancy car.
You love jujitsu.
I love jujitsu. I like to have my friends choke me out, you know, and you and I have rolled before, you know. So I want what we put on social media to jive with who we are behind the scenes and how we talk to our clients, the whole thing. We have very strong core values that took years to develop, and it's been a very nice process to see the way the firm culture has transitioned. The client communications reflect that, and so it's all a very integrated approach.
Let me tell you, Tom, you're hella tough for a 50-year-old.
Well, you were sandbagging me. I didn't know you were like number two in the county.
I wasn't that good. Come on, you were nasty.
I had trouble walking the next day. Let's put it that way.
You're funny. You're funny. Well, you got your whole setup of mats and saunas and everything in your basement, a gym, everything. No wonder you're training all the time.
All the time, all the time.
When Corona happened, everybody was scrambling to get a home gym together, including myself. You had it all set up for yourself. Nothing changed.
Yep.
But your gym's still closed, I'm guessing, right?
The jiu-jitsu, yeah, I haven't trained jiu-jitsu. I was actually looking at the training dummies that they sell online last night, because I'm getting so itchy to train. I'm like, I'll do something. It'll keep me fresh, you know?
Yeah.
It's too, there are people that are training, but to me, it's too risky right now.
Yeah.
You know, without knowing too much about what the real ramifications are of the virus or anything else.
Yeah, I had it last month. You bought me.
I know.
You bought me matzo ball soup.
Yes.
Got it delivered to my house. You see, that's what makes a good attorney. Doing things differently. Caring. Caring,
I
right?
bet your real estate attorney didn't send you matzo ball soup.
Nope, it was you and I think it was Allon. I think Allon sent me something, who you also introduced me to.
Yep.
How funny is that? And talking about tough, I know you're one of the toughest negotiators I have ever met in my life. You recommended to me Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
You like Chris Voss?
I love Chris Voss. So that book was game changing to me. I read it when it first came out. I had a very significant mediation coming up. I'm going back years now, but I comped out what we thought this case was worth among some of the top legal minds that are in my inner circle.
Give us numbers.
I ended up, what's that?
Give me some numbers.
So I asked a bunch of people, a bunch of partners, litigation guys in law firms, same as me, same age bracket, been doing it a long time. And everybody said, the case has got a value of, 300 to 400. I walked out with 750. So I was like, all right, I know that this works, right? Like, I've tested it. It's battle tested. I've made 7 figures worth of revenue just off of the skills that I garnered. I saw the guy speak live. I went to an 8-hour class that he taught in the city. Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you, it's battle tested, but a lot of it is common sense that people don't use. Active listening, like just listen, active listening. It's very difficult to do. And most attorneys are horrible at it. So when you're negotiating with attorneys, they just want to hear themselves talk, right? And so that book is probably, I think I bought that book for about 20, 25 people for the holidays in the past. I've read it probably a dozen times.
Wow.
And the good thing is, no matter what we talk about today, people are so freaking lazy. I don't have to worry about anybody picking it up that's going to be against me on a negotiation. No one will read it, and that gives me a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I recommended it to a few friends, and they all sent me pictures reading it. I was very impressed.
Yeah, it's a game changer when people put in that kind of work. And to me, I walk out and go, now I got a worthy adversary. Like, this is somebody who's going to make me work today, you know?
Yep. Hey, I thought I was a good negotiator. I negotiate on things no matter what, whether I'm good at or somebody's way better or not. I'd always try and negotiate. I learned that from my parents.
Right. And your parents are some of the top negotiators I know. So
God, my dad is scary good at negotiating. I read the book.
Your mom too, though. Your mom, I know your mom and dad almost, I want to say 20 something years, right?
Yeah.
So your mom was one of the first people, I think I told you the story. I represented her on a case.
Yeah, her car accident.
And she tried to negotiate my fee at the end. And she was the first time. And I was like, look, because your mom's very petite and she's tough, though. She's really tough. She got a tough side to her. And I said, look, I can't do it. You know, time to negotiate was up front. We made a deal. We got a deal. A deal's a deal. So, but we have like a mutual respect. And I mean, your parent, I think the world of your parents. They're amazing people.
Yeah, they're the best. I love them to death.
Oh, they're amazing. They're amazing.
When I read that book, I thought the whole book was written about my father, you know, because he is so naturally good. It's the balls he has. He has no shame in negotiating at all. He doesn't see the shame. He sees it as more for me, you know, less for the competition. And I love that about him. It doesn't matter how small. I've seen him negotiate over $1. I'm not kidding. $1.
There's people like you, me, your dad, that really love the game of negotiation. Yes. It's not about what I'm negotiating over, how much I'm negotiating over. I just love the back and forth of negotiation. I've read easily dozens of books on negotiation, taking classes, everything. This is by far the best read on negotiation ever, and it's responsible for creating multiple seven figures in wealth over and over again for me, the people I know that have actually embraced it and done it. And now it's required reading for the attorneys in my firm. They got to know it.
Never split the difference. Everyone's got to read it.
Never split the difference, man.
You know, when you recommended that book to me, I picked it up the next day. I read it, and I listened to the podcast. I did both. Not the podcast, the audiobook.
Yes, the audiobook's great too.
Phenomenal. I learned more from the audiobook. I actually absorbed the information. And the main thing that I realized I was not doing that works so well, it's scary well, is mirroring. The mirroring strategy, total game changer for me. I do it all the time now. Now I started subconsciously doing it.
Right.
You know, and you're going to love this. So I posted a deal. I'm working on a deal right now in Patchogue. It's a nice mixed use deal. It's pretty big. You know, my typical deal size range that is my bread and butter is between like $250,000 and $750,000. I close those every month almost, something in that range. Now I'm starting to go up past $1 million range. It feels good. I'm happier. I like to be there, and I can see myself continue to grow. What's been falling on my lap is a lot of these mixed use buildings. So I find this building. A broker sent it to me when I posted a video of the property I was looking at in Patchogue. He sends this to me, he goes, the asking's 1.8. I run the numbers and I'm like, 1.8 doesn't make any sense at all, but this is what it's listed for, right? So I go, listen, the building's worth $1 million. I'll put in $1 million offer, I want to put 15% down and I want the seller to hold financing. The broker's like, you're on crack. He's like, seller financing at $1 million, you're offering him like under, you know, like 40% of what he's asking for, and or whatever it is, 50% almost, or more even. He's saying you're offering him 50% under what he's asking for, and you want him to hold seller financing. I'm like, it took me time just to convince him to go and say it. You know, I was like, give me his phone number, I'll propose it, because I think he was embarrassed. So he proposes it. He sends me the LOI, and I changed the LOI. I sent it back to him $900,000 instead. And he's like, He's like, you changed the terms. I was like, yeah, because you know what? There's no harm in going lower. You won't believe it. Today they called back. They said they're totally entertaining the offer. He called me back. He's like, I cannot believe this. They're totally entertaining the offer. They asked for proof of funds. And I think they're going to counter at like 1.1. And the reason, the trick, right? Everybody's like, I can't find any properties. There's no good deals. This is a typical deal. The guy just listed at 1.8, so he's not getting any offers.
Right. So the one big takeaway from the book, and the biggest thing that was a really poignant statement and a really simple statement, was no deal is better than a bad deal. And that gives you the fortitude to say, hey, listen, I woke up this morning, I didn't have this deal. I'm going to make an offer that's a good offer for me. And if I go to bed and I don't have this deal, then I don't have this deal. But I'm not going to entertain a bad deal just because they're listing it way too high, right? So for us, we always have the alternative of, I've got some really hungry litigation attorneys in my firm. So if they don't want to settle the case, we had a case I'll tell you about last week. It's a much smaller thing. It's a $100,000 case. We have a binding arbitration set up at the end of the month where a retired attorney or a retired judge who's the arbitrator is going to render a binding decision, right? So they could put anywhere from 0 to 100 on the case. A carrier in the city that represents a lot of cab companies calls up and says, we'll give you $35,000 settle case. Now, there are law firms that would have settled that case.
Really?
We're like, no, 100 grand. 100 grand all day long. Oh, we'll see you at the arbitration. Go to the arbitration, we get the award, 100 grand. Right? So I'm not going to accept 35 grand on a case I know we're going to hit them on.
Yeah.
And as long as the client's okay with it, we tell the client, look, if you want to accept it, it's up to you. You drive the boat. You want 35 grand, we'll settle it today. But I don't recommend it. I think your injuries are much higher.
Yeah.
And the client trusted us, went forward, 100 grand. So that was a pretty transformational statement. No deal is better than a bad deal.
Yep. You're right. And now for those people that don't know, how do you make money from that 100 grand case?
We get 1/3. So on $100,000, it's a $33,000 legal fee. And it's a personal injury case, so it's contingency. If we get 0, then we don't get paid.
Well, you lost money, right?
Well, we'll lose money because we'll have expenses into the file, yeah. But we have a really good eye for evaluation and approach. And we always advise the client, again, a very holistic approach, because what's best for them is usually going to be best for us, and vice versa. We're on the same page.
100%. 100%. And usually that, right, what's the saying? I think it was even in the book. It's like at a closing, everybody's got to be happy. Everybody's got to give a little bit, but at the end of the closing, everybody should be happy. Somebody got paid, somebody bought a new property, and somebody was in the middle of that deal that, made a profit for brokering it, whatever.
Right.
So what's next, Tom? What do you see next happening?
For us? Like for me and you?
No, for you.
Well, so for me, look, I can say for both of us, we're in very similar spaces. You remind me of a 25-year-old version of myself,
With more.
Listen, I had a full head of hair at 25. It went away. So look, I think that whether it's 2021 or 2022, things are going to get better, right? And in the scheme of life, another year to 2 years is a blip, right? We just made it through probably the worst of it, I hope.
Yeah.
New York's still shutting down, so.
Right. But it's about resilience, right? It's not, you can't be fragile. Like when I said to somebody, look, this could go on to 2022, 2023. This could be normal. They were like, I can't do it. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? What's your option? Right? And Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, just keep going. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do.
Well said. Well said. Tell me, it's just popped into my mind. Why do attorneys always say don't go to law school?
Um, I would think they don't go to law school because they're not doing what they're passionate about. So if you talk to an attorney that loves what they do, they fall into one of two camps. They're a great technician, and that's what they want to do. They want to do great lawyering, and that's what they want to do. Or they fall into the other camp where they're very entrepreneur oriented and they love the business of law, right? So early in my career, I loved trying cases and I loved lawyering. I loved the chess game of litigation and I loved winning, right? And we did it a lot. I did it a lot. Today, I'm in the second camp. I love entrepreneurship and I now hire great litigators and attorneys. I'm infinitely more fascinated with the business of law and the challenges that come with running a business, growing a business that is filled with different personalities, and it's way different risks and rewards than just being a technician, right? How many wins do I have to have before my ego feels gratified? I'm a good lawyer, right? When you own a business, the challenges never stop.
I love how you answered that because you just made something so big, fit into the category of lawyering, like what you're doing. You just put it into your category, although what you really just said was like such a big picture, right? I talk to people all the time and they say, I'm like, why are you going to be a PA or an RN, right? Why are you going to work in finance? And their answer is because I'll make a lot of money. I'm like, well, what do you really like to do? And somebody will answer linguistics. Somebody will answer teaching. Somebody else will answer litigation. So why don't you pursue your passion? Because there's so much money in everything. It's such a big world.
But you have a growth mindset, right? So there is money to be made. Like my daughter's young. You've seen my daughter. She's 10. When people say to her, what do you want to do? She doesn't know what she wants to do yet. But I tell her, whatever you want to do, you gotta love it. Yeah. And then the money will come, right? Like I love the business of law. It's very financially rewarding the way I do it. And I love that as we grow and scale, I can help more and more people with the same cookie cutter model of lawyering, which is top tier litigation, right? But if I didn't love this, I'd be a guy who'd tell people don't go to law school. I tell people, if you're passionate about the law or debate, and the idea of argument and litigation, or you like the transactional side, like you're great at what you do because you eat, live, sleep, and breathe real estate and finance. Yeah. And that's why to you, it doesn't feel like 20-hour days, even though you're putting in 20-hour days. When most of your friends could be going out drinking and partying, you're analyzing deals and you love it. You love it.
I love deals. I love doing deals, and real estate gave me the opportunity to learn more about other businesses and people and figure things out. That's my passion. The intricacies of real estate, I hate it. I can't stand it. But for that, I hired 2 technicians in my office,
Right.
So finally, I've given myself the opportunity to take that off of my chest, off my shoulders, and now I could work on doing more deals.
Yeah, and you need technicians that love doing the work, right? That love the nuts and bolts of the operations and all of that stuff, whether it's the lawyering, the paralegaling, or the real estate deals. And then occasionally you find people who have that entrepreneur mindset, and then you move them up to a different thing because they're not gonna want to stay technicians once they're expert at it. Once they're expert, then you got to look at, okay,
They have to see your vision. They have to see the person, like your technicians must see your vision that you're trying to make this a better place for all of them together, right? You've talked to me about stock options with your staff endlessly, those opportunities in the future. And because of your vision, because you see forward and you see the opportunities they're going to have, I think they feed off of that.
Yeah. So we in our firm, that's the other thing. We have a massive amount of benefits: health insurance, profit sharing. We look at ASOPs, which is the employee stock option plans. I haven't implemented that yet. It's just something I've looked at because I don't even know how it works with law firms. Yeah. Because one of the things that's been a big shift for me is I've seen a lot of partners in law firms have a different standard for what they want for themselves versus the people that work for them, right? Well, I'm going to take off between Christmas and New Year's, but everybody else got to come in. Why? They have families. And if they bust their ass and they're excellent all year long, why do they have to come in and you get to stay home? Why shouldn't they all get to relax and refresh? Right? So I don't have the same standard. Like if they're killing it, we're killing it together. There's no, oh, Tom gets certain treatment, they get certain treatment.
Well said. Well said. Now I've always known, but I also see, and I hope other people could see, I hope maybe you get some business for this or from this or some connections or something, but why your staff and the people that you work with always love to work with you, because you really are looking to provide value to everybody in your circles.
Yeah, listen, I'm a very demanding person. Like if you're working here and you've made it to the 90-day mark and you're continuing to grow, you're an A player, because I don't want B players in my organization.
Yeah.
You know, so I treat you like an A player, you know, like I don't hire people to micromanage them. They're all paid at the top of their field plus.
Yeah.
I let them do what they're supposed to do. The lawyers are responsible for lawyering and the paraprofessionals are responsible for their jobs. I don't have to micromanage it.
There's a degree, right, of micromanaging, but that's built on the systems that you've implemented.
It's all systems, but they've developed the systems and they're self-policing. They're all grown-ups. They don't need me playing that role.
Yeah.
You know, they have done, my team has done miraculous things during this crisis. So I will always look at them and say, we went through this shoulder to shoulder. We're building this shoulder to shoulder. And anything I can do to show that gratitude, I have to do. It's my job.
Well, Tom, this has been a wonderful podcast, seriously. I hope people have learned a lot from this. And if they haven't, go to Tona Law and, you know, if you need a lawyer, hire Tom Tona.
Do a little research.
Yeah, do some research, recommend him out. There's no referral fees because that's illegal, but
No.
but make some introductions and it's awesome. And Tom, I want to end on this note. I want to ask you a question before we finish here.
Sure.
You always give me advice, right? I'm going to be selfish here. I want you to give me some advice for the future, 5 years ahead. What can I implement right now that'll benefit me in 5 years from now?
Okay, so you know I don't like to give advice unless people ask, but since you're asking, my two pieces of advice would be this. One, listen to your gut always, right? It's never wrong. If you don't know the answer to something, meditate on it. You know, I'm a big meditator. I love meditation, and the answers will come. Always listen to your gut. Two, monitor and protect your inner circle fiercely, right? Your inner circle today will predict where you'll be in 5 years. Take care of the people that take care of you in that circle and be as generous with them as they are with you. And that would be the two biggest needle movers for me have been those two pieces of advice.
Tom, you're the man. It's been a pleasure having you and a good conversation. I know we'll have another one about this long tomorrow on the phone in the car on the way home. So,
Yep.
thanks for coming, man. It's been a pleasure, seriously.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. 844 Tona Law if anybody needs anything.